Hi, everyone. We're going to give people just a minute or two to join, so hang tight and we'll get started shortly. Okay, we can go ahead and get started then. So hello, my name is Allison. Just a couple housekeeping things to go over before we get started. If you have any questions today, I encourage you to ask them. You can ask them either in the chat or in the Q&A section in Zoom. And we'll go over questions at the end. And we do have an upcoming workshop that I'll mention again later on that goes over some other specifics of lead scoring. And we do have open office hours now as well. So if you have any questions that aren't related to lead scoring, just kind of general act-on questions, we have an open office hours session that you can attend and get your questions answered. And then additionally, at the end of the webinar, we will be sending out a really quick survey. And I do encourage you to complete it because it really helps us know what topics will help our customers. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Just to introduce myself really quick, my name is Allison. Like I said, I'm an implementation manager here with Act On. I've been here for a little over 2 years now, and I work with customers, getting them up and running when they're new to Act On, training them on the platform, the different features, making sure that they feel comfortable and successful. I've been working in the software industry for quite some time and doing training and onboarding for over 5 years now. So I'm based in Portland. I have a 16-month-old daughter. Here she is. She's very cute, but I'm excited to be here with you all today. Okay. So for our agenda today, we're going to start off by looking at the specifics kind of what is lead scoring? What even are we going to be talking about today? So we'll start there. Then we'll take a look at how defining your ICP plays into this. And does anyone know what an ICP is? It's okay if you don't. We'll dive into that too. We'll talk through the multiple ways that you can apply lead scoring, whether that's through behavioral versus profile lead scoring or using different score sheets in Act On. And finally, we'll kind of take a look at how this all ties back into the marketing funnel that I know you've all seen before. Okay. And I want to start off today just kind of by calling out that we are primarily going to be talking about lead scoring in a B2B context. So lead scoring is still possible and relevant in a B2C environment, but the approach we're taking and focusing on in this webinar is going to be the B2B side of things. So we're going to start off with the basics, talk a little bit about lead scoring. What even is it? This might be a really straightforward concept for some of you, but for others, this might be entirely new. Maybe you've never done this before. So let's take a look. Lead scoring, in essence, is a system that assigns points to a lead based on designated criteria, and it adds the points together to estimate the likelihood of that lead's readiness to make a purchase from you. So it gives your company an objective system to rank and prioritize leads. But there are some key things to remember here. First, it is an estimate. There are many factors involved, and we want to consider those when we determine a lead's readiness to buy. And then ultimately, it is just a numeric field. It's a number. It's not good, it's not bad, but what you do with it matters. So there's a point where we trigger action based on these numbers. That action could be any number of things. It could be sending an invite to a webinar. It could be direct communication from the sales team, or like I said, any number of things. But the value of lead scoring is really determining where that trigger point is to keep leads from falling through the cracks. So up on the screen here, I have a number. Let's say I have someone with this lead score, a lead score of 100. What does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? It depends. Depends on kind of how you've set things up. I have a contact now with a lead score of 500. Which lead is presumably better? The one with the higher score, right? But 500 as a number, yes, it's better than 100, but it isn't inherently good or bad. The threshold and the scale that you set, it's really arbitrary. Presumably more points means a better lead, but one organization's 500 could be another organization's 50. They could be equivalent leads, just as qualified, but on a different scoring system here, different scoring scale. So where you trigger that action to occur based on that lead score, that's what really matters. Why is lead scoring important? A number of reasons. It really helps you define when a lead is considered ready, where that trigger point is, which can lead to better alignment across sales and marketing teams. It helps you prioritize which leads are ready to have action taken on. Helps improve lead quality so that you can deliver more targeted content. And because of that, you can increase conversion rates because you are focusing on leads that are ready, that are meeting the specific criteria that you designate. And then it helps you kind of optimize by identifying which strategies are the most effective at driving conversions. There are two types of lead scoring: behavioral and profile lead scoring. Behavioral lead scoring assigns points based on the actions that a lead has taken and how they have engaged with your marketing material. So this includes things like page visits, email clicks, form submits, webinar attendance, that kind of thing. We'll take a look at this a bit more later on. But the other type of lead scoring is profile lead scoring. So this considers other factors and characteristics such as job title, age, company, location, among others. Now, where does profile data like this come from? You could ask for it on a form, or there are these companies out there like ZoomInfo or Clearbit, among others, that provide this type of data. But profile lead scoring really ties into the idea of an ICP that I mentioned earlier, or an ideal customer profile. There's this quote here up on the screen that says, you never sell to a lead, but always to an account. And that's from a book called ABM is B2B. So to kind of break that down, let's say we have our dear friend, Sally. Sally is our contact. She's the person that we're going to work with. But the contract that we're ultimately striving for, it's going to be with the company that Sally works for, ABC company, let's say. I don't sign a contract with Sally. Sally's name is not the entity on that agreement any more than yours would be. Your company has an agreement with Sally's company. So really identifying what that ideal customer looks like in terms of entities is going to be a key step here when doing business to business sales. So what is an ICP? An ICP, ideal customer profile, it combines firmographic, environmental, and behavioral characteristics to define your company's most desirable customer. So firmographic characteristics would be things like company size, number of employees, industry. Environmental could include things like what types of technologies that organization uses, and behavioral ties back into engagement with your marketing materials, which we touched on briefly already. And organizations with a strong ICP achieve 68% higher account win rates, according to the TOPO 2019 account-based benchmark report. So really taking the time to develop these can have a huge impact on your success. But be careful here. An ICP and a buyer persona, they are different things. Persona in this example would kind of refer back to our good friend Sally. Sally likes to read books. She likes to try new restaurants. She works in the finance department, so her cost savings are really important. She has these characteristics as a person, as an individual, but again, she works for ABC Company, and ABC Company has certain characteristics as an organization, and those characteristics are what we really want to drill into for an ICP. How do you create an ICP? You want to start by identifying your best customers. So look at the customers you've already sold to, pull in info from your CRM, find upsells, find who's getting the most value from your product, and analyze the data. You want to look for patterns, look for similarities, and then create a template. Here on the right, we have an example of an ICP from Cognism. It's another sales intelligence provider like ZoomInfo or Clearbit that I mentioned earlier. So they're looking at someone in the B2B market, in the SaaS industry in the United States with around 50 employees. That's their ideal customer profile. Yours could look something like this or different, but the key is to find similarities in your data and identify which characteristics make someone or some organization more likely to buy from your product. So for this ICP, what you should be able to say is, when a prospect with these characteristics shows up in my pipeline, I win. I've got a really good chance that they're going to buy from my company because they are the kind of company that really gets value out of my product or service. And so if I can identify those characteristics, I've got a really good chance here. Building out an ICP can also help you identify who is not your ideal customer. So there are customers out there who are, in essence, anti-ideal, so the opposite of what you would look for. And we'll see kind of how this plays out in an example here shortly. So I got a couple contacts up here compared side by side. They are almost identical. They're both directors at a software company using similar technologies, located in the United States. They even have similar recent behavioral activity. They both open up an email. But we see here contact number 2 works for a much larger organization. You know that you typically sell better to larger companies. It's not that you can't sell to a smaller organization necessarily, but maybe you're just not as excited about them. The deal size isn't going to be as big. You know that larger organizations just tend to be more successful with your product. So comparing these two contacts side by side, even though almost everything about contact 1 suggests they would be a good fit for you, contact number 2 would be stronger in this example. Now we've got the same contacts again, but contact number 1 is suddenly showing a lot of intent. They're engaged. They've downloaded an ebook. They've attended a webinar. They've submitted a pricing request. We know that submitting a pricing request is typically an indicator of strong intent. They're showing that they are ready to make a purchase. That's exciting to you. So in this example, even though previously you may have been more excited about contact number 2, based on the intent contact number 1 is showing, they're basically raising their hand and saying, hey, I want to buy from you. You're excited about them too. But now we have another example. So contact number 1 is staying the same as on the previous slide, but here contact number 2 changes. Their level of engagement increases, so it's identical to contact number 1. But the key is that they are in China. Unfortunately, you just can't support customers in China. Your software system doesn't support double byte characters. So even though they fit in all these other areas, their geographical location pretty much disqualifies them. That profile characteristic of where they're based excludes them, even though otherwise they would be a really great fit. Okay, so let's come back now to the idea of behavioral lead scoring. How do we determine these values? Again, the range is arbitrary. You can really set the numbers to be whatever you want. We do have recommended values with Act-On that you can use as a starting point, but you'll probably find that you need to make some iterations and changes to your scoring as you go. Maybe you need to add more weight to a specific behavior. Maybe this specific page visit isn't as good of an indicator of buying intent as we originally thought. So you might need to make some tweaks and adjustments there. But here's an example of how this might look. So we've got some behaviors up on the screen. Somebody's visited a website, they get 8 points, submitted a form, downloaded a white paper. All of this is kind of adding up to a total of 124 here. And they also have a profile score of 50. So that's great. They're a pretty strong lead. Maybe we have our trigger set to 50 for what we consider to be marketing qualified. Now, next up, we have all the same behavior, but we've actually applied a negative profile score here. Maybe it could be because that lead was in China, and like we mentioned, you just can't support customers in China. Or maybe it's any number of other criteria that you've designated, but that is actually detracting from their overall lead score, putting them in the negative and really disqualifying them entirely. So in Act-On, you can have multiple score sheets to kind of allow you to customize your scoring even further. You can expand upon your scoring rules. So coming back to the idea of profile versus behavior, you could have a score sheet for each. You could have a score sheet that calculates lead score in the last 90 days, lead score in the last week, lead score in all time. You could have one that's for a specific product or a specific campaign or for customers versus prospects. There's lots of different options, lots of different possibilities with multiple score sheets, but they do just give you kind of that added dimension into comparing different lead scores. They allow you to really kind of further customize and expand upon it. So let's kind of see how that looks. So I have here some profile scores for 2 different contacts. This contact has a profile score of 10, and they've got a good level of behavior, of recent activity here. So they've clicked on a message, submitted a form, downloaded an ebook, attended a webinar. Their lead score is pretty high, 70. But contact number 2, their profile score is quite a bit higher. It's 100. Their activity isn't as high in this example. They've opened a message, clicked on a message, submitted a contact us form. Even though their overall behavior score is maybe lower, I might want to reach out to them anyway because of their profile score. It's much higher. They're fitting right in line with that ICP that I developed. 100 here in this example, or 146, the total here. It's no longer arbitrary because I've assigned value to it. I've assigned value and determined where that trigger point is. So these numbers, they now mean something because I've decided at what point I'm going to take action. So let's kind of tie this all back together. Let's come here to the idea of our marketing funnel. I know you've all seen this. We know that people engage differently based on how interested they are in your product, how likely they are to buy from you. So someone who is actively looking at pricing material, wanting live product demos, they're probably going to fall into this decision category. And folks that are in kind of other funnel stages, they would be engaging in different ways. Lead scores really help us quantify that. So based on the behaviors, they'll be assigned a certain number of points and they'll fall into these ranges that you've set. Again, the numbers are arbitrary at first. They really mean nothing until you assign value to them. So what you do and when you do it, that does matter. If 40 is your threshold for crossing into marketing qualified range, then it's time for you to take action. Why 40? It could be any number, but you've decided on that number at this point and you've given it value. So these numbers here, these are kind of the starting recommended values that Acton uses. We do have an article that references this that you can use as a guide, as a starting point that I mentioned. But again, because you've decided on that number, it has value at this point. That's where you'll want to take action. And that's what brings the value into lead scoring. So taking action, I did mention earlier that we do have some workshops coming up and some office hours. So for those of you that have a lead scoring system set up already, or those of you that don't, we do have this workshop coming up that goes over the specifics of kind of how to build this out in Acton. We'll take a look at hot prospects, how to build your lead scores, multiple score sheets, all of that, and what goes into it in Acton. And then we have office hours coming up as well for open topic. If you do have any questions that are not related to lead scoring, related to really anything, you can come and bring those questions there. And we'll throw the sign up links in the chat for you if you're not already registered. And I did want to mention that an on-demand replay with the slide deck will be going out on Friday morning for those of you who attended today. And as a quick reminder, we will be sending a survey after this that does allow you to give your feedback. We encourage you to fill this out so that we can see kind of what topics are of interest to you. And with that said, thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and pause for questions from the audience. Okay. Okay, I see a question coming through. My buyer persona and ICP are really similar. Is that okay, or should I try to differentiate between those two more? That's a great question. It's important to remember buyer persona and ICP, they are different things. Persona really looks more at the characteristics of the person. So going back to our Sally example that we used earlier, it's looking at, you know, the traits of that person. So Sally, she likes to go out to eat. She works in the finance department, like I mentioned. So cost savings are going to be important to her as a person when making a buying decision. But the ICP is really going to focus more on the traits of an organization. So, you know, what kind of software products they use, how many employees work there, where they're located, those kind of traits there. So they are different things. They might have similarities, but they are different things, and it's important to remember that. Okay. Another question I see. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Another question came in from Kristen, and she says, how many score sheets can you create?
Great question. You can have up to 5 in Acton. And I believe if you need more than that, we do have the option to add more, but 5 are how many are set up by default.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any others?
Oh, Kristen has another question real
Oh,
quick.
good.
She asks, do you have ICP templates?
Good question. I don't have one right now, but I can see what I can find and follow up with you.
And Kristen, if you want to just drop your email address like in the Q&A, we can grab that and then Allison and I can follow up with you.
Thanks, Owen. Okay.
And Jamie has a question. Where do you see the scores in Acton?
Yeah. Good question. I can show you real quick. Let me just go ahead and log in. I'll log into my demo. So there's two ways that you can see the scoring. So again, we'll dive into this more in detail and practical usage in our workshop next week. But the scoring rules are set up under contacts, scoring rules. And this is where you kind of set those up. So we have all these general behaviors here in terms of, submitted any form, visited any landing page, and you can get more specific down here on the plus button. If you want to look at applying points to visiting a specific web page, for example, or clicking on a specific email. But that's kind of where you set that up. In the multiple score sheets, I have some up here. I've got 3 set up, but you can always add another by just clicking this blue plus button. And then the lead score is actually going to be visible on the contact report. So when you pull up a contact, let me just see if I can pull up someone. Here's a demo. Is that showing the contact report, Owen?
No, we're just seeing the browser. We're not seeing the pop-up, unfortunately.
Okay, give me just 1 second. Okay, how about now?
We got it. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so this is just a demo contact. There's no real lead score data applied to them, but you would be able to see their score applied on the contact report. And then you can also see all the behavior that led to them getting that score. So if you look at the timeline, there would be a timeline of events. In the summary, you can see all of that behavior there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Allie.
Any other questions?
David has a question.
Sure.
They say, I only use behavioral lead scoring. When you add ICP scoring, how do you handle email series that triggers off a number of points?
I'm not sure I quite followed the question. Could you elaborate a bit more, David? So handling lead scoring with...
We might have to follow up.
Yeah.
David, when we send out the on-demand, it'll have a link in the landing page where you can send us an email, and Allie and I can take a look at that with a little bit more context, and we'll go ahead and we'll email you back after that, okay?
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. I think we have time for just one more question if anyone has one.
Anyone else? Oh, I see one here. We have one score sheet that seems to work really well for us. Should I use multiple score sheets, or is it okay to use just one? How many score sheets should I have, or is this on a case-by-case basis? It really depends. If one is working great for you, that's fine. But if you want to kind of take it a step further, look at scoring calculated in different ways, then adding another score sheet is going to be a great way to do that. You can look at lead scores on the different score sheets and kind of toggle between them and see how the scores got applied. So it depends. It is kind of on a case-by-case basis, but if one's working great for you, great. You don't have to add others unless you feel the need to, or want to kind of experiment with how that would look. But I think that's time. So we'll go ahead and finish up. Thank you everyone for attending and for bringing your questions. It's been really fun spending these last 30 minutes with you. And we will send out the recording Friday morning. And awesome. Alrighty. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks. Bye.